Before the pandemic, it tended to be people from Australia or America or the UK or Europe, and they tended to be young, what we call knowledge workers, freelancers, and they were quite a niche lifestyle. What's happened since the pandemic is that remote work has become mainstream, and there are many more people wanting to become digital nomads now.
So what attracts them to the idea in the first place? Is it just as simple as, working somewhere fabulous so you can knock off early and go for a swim, or get up early and go for a hike?
Yeah, I mean, all of those things are true. There's the pull of freedom and trying to escape the 9 to 5. A lot of digital nomads are rejecting the traditional notion of a job. But also, a lot of young people are struggling to survive in places like Sydney and London and San Francisco to pay the rent. So when I'm out doing research, a lot of the people are freelancing, working for companies back home, but making their wages go a little bit further in a place with a lower cost of living.
So where are some of these digital nomad hotspots around the world? Is there such a thing as a digital nomad circuit?
There is, and in 2015, 2016, when I started my research and the digital nomad lifestyle was still very niche, the main areas were Bali in Indonesia, which is quite close to Australia, and also Thailand, and that's where I conduct most of my research. I conduct my research in Chiang Mai. And these were the first tropical locations that digital nomads were attracted to. And in 2015, 2016, newspapers were writing a lot of articles and features about people working on laptops in hammocks or by swimming pools, and that was the cliche back then. It's broadened now, but there's still very much a lot of pictures of people working on mountaintops on laptops or in hammocks.
Assuming they can get Wi-Fi, of course. I mean, Dave, corporates are embracing the idea. I know Airbnb announced a digital nomad policy. Governments also have projects to attract digital nomads. There's something like 7 countries with visas designed for them. But how are these once and often sleepy towns coping?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting what you were saying about Spotify. They did launch a digital nomad policy, but actually there's a bit of a culture war going on. People are being called back to the office. So a lot of workers have it in their mind that they're able to work remotely and sometimes cross-border, but actually tax and other bureaucracies are stopping people being able to do this, and companies like Disney and some of the tech companies are pulling people back into the office. So things are going into different directions at the moment. So it's quite confusing for workers.
And just on the point of a once sleepy town, we're hearing stories of they're being descended upon by digital nomads who are pushing up the prices of food, of rents, of overpopulation. Are the towns coping?
Yeah, I mean, in Chiang Mai, I wouldn't call it a sleepy town. It's the second city in Thailand, and in terms of the amount of digital nomads there, they're not having too much of an impact on the price of rental properties, for example. But if you look at places like Lisbon, which is a global city, but it's still quite a small city, and it's already suffering from over-tourism. There is some criticism of digital nomads adding to the pressure. So there's a lot of discussion about that in Lisbon and in Portugal. And Bali itself is already suffering from over-tourism. So there are a lot of digital nomads working out of places like Canggu and Seminyak, where there are co-working spaces. And I don't know if you've ever been to Bali, but the traffic is already pretty hideous.
It is indeed.
So it's really under pressure.
We know that right now it's cost of living pressures around the globe, talk of recession. Do you think the trend can be sustained in an economic downturn? Where do you think the future of digital nomadism is heading?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting thing when we talk about the cost of living crisis, which is happening all over the world, a lot of digital nomads are actually leaving places like Sydney and San Francisco, as I said before, to escape those high living costs. But actually, what's happening, ironically, is exporting those problems from places like America to places like Portugal, where it's pushing up the cost of living there. So these are all interconnected effects of this kind of globalization, if you like.